My husband's coworkers thought I married for money until they realized I funded their paychecks. It all started when I showed up to my husband Archie's startup launch party in a little black dress and heels, carrying a designer purse that apparently screamed, "I married for money," louder than a fire alarm in a library, while his hoodie-wearing colleagues looked at me like I was a poodle at a wolf convention. The party was at one of those trendy co-working spaces that smell like cold brew and broken dreams, packed with 20-somethings who code first and shower third, and there I was, the apparent anomaly who dared to wear something dry clean only. Archie introduced me to his team, and I swear I could see their thought bubbles forming above their heads like dialogue boxes in a video game. Achievement unlocked. Boss married someone hot. Jax, the lead developer who looked like he'd been personally victimized by a barbershop, immediately started explaining what a startup was, speaking slower than dial-up internet, as if I'd wandered in from an alternate dimension where technology hadn't been invented yet. When I asked about their Series A funding goals, he literally said, "Oh wow, you know what Series A means," with the same shock as discovering your goldfish can do calculus, then proceeded to explain it anyway, comparing it to, like when you go shopping and need more money for a really expensive purse. Finn, their CTO, whose personality was as flat as a deprecated API, kept directing all technical conversation away from me, actually telling me that coding was kind of like following a really complicated recipe, but for computers instead of cookies. The UI designer, Jose, asked if I worked, with air quotes so aggressive they could have been classified as assault, and when I said I worked in venture capital, he laughed and said, "Oh, like a receptionist at one of those firms?" As if the concept of me doing anything beyond answering phones was more far-fetched than their startup's profitability projections. Sadly, Archie got pulled away on business, so I had to play the nice host. Throughout the night, they kept making these little jokes about trophy wives, with Finn actually saying their startup was too complicated for someone who probably thinks Python is just a snake, while Jax added that I probably married Archie for his future potential earnings, which was rich coming from someone whose current earnings were apparently in equity and energy drinks. Jasmine, the only female developer, tried to bond with me by complaining about how some women just coast on their looks, while literally looking at my shoes like they were proof of my moral failings. Jose made a crack about how I probably thought their burn rate was something that happens at the gym, which might have been funnier if he looked like he'd ever seen the inside of one. The kicker came when they started discussing their funding troubles, lamenting about how their mysterious angel investor, who they only knew as Phoenix Capital, had been their only lifeline, with Jax actually saying, "At least someone with actual business sense believes in us, unlike people who just marry into tech," while looking directly at me like I was the poster child for Gold Diggers Anonymous. They went on and on about how Phoenix Capital was probably some brilliant tech mogul who understood their vision, definitely a he who'd built his fortune through innovation, not marriage, and I just sipped my wine. When Archie tried to mention my work, Finn literally interrupted to explain cryptocurrency to me, starting with, "Imagine money, but on computers," while Jax pulled out his phone to show me this cool app called LinkedIn, where professional people network, as if I'd been living under a rock that didn't have Wi-Fi. Archie went to correct them, but I just waved my hand dismissively. The conversation reached peak condescension when Jose suggested I should start a blog about being a startup wife, because it's like having a diary, but on the internet, and Jasmine added that maybe I could write about fashion since that was probably more your speed than technical stuff, all while they complained about the challenges of finding good investors who actually understood technology. That's when Finn mentioned they were preparing for their next funding round, hoping to expand beyond with the help of Phoenix Capital, and Jax joked that maybe I could ask my rich housewife friends if their husbands wanted to invest, because apparently my social circle consisted exclusively of Real Housewives casting rejects. The beautiful moment of cosmic justice arrived when Archie, bless his heart, finally had enough and innocently asked, "Why don't you tell them about Phoenix Capital, honey?" And I got to watch their faces go through all 5 stages of grief faster than a crashed server recovery. I simply mentioned that Phoenix Capital was actually my private firm, established 5 years ago after I sold my first startup, you know, the little payment processing company they probably used to buy their hoodies online. Suddenly the room got a lot quieter. Jax's face went through more color changes than a RGB gaming setup. Finn started stammering like a corrupted audio file. Jose looked like he'd just divided by 0, and Jasmine suddenly found the floor more interesting than any user interface she'd ever designed. But the best part was watching them try to backpedal faster than a failed deployment rollback. Trust me, what happened next will make your jaw drop. Click the link.